Hello and welcome to my channel. This is my third YouTube video, but it's the first episode of my video podcast series. So please bear with me if I'm still a little cringy. In this episode, I want to share with you how to identify essential areas for personal growth using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This episode is a response to questions I received from a participant in my growth planning webinar, which I hosted in December 2023. So it's going to help you think through what to include in your personal growth plans for 2024 or whatever year you are watching this video in. So let's start by refreshing our minds through the previous year. In this case, it's 2023. I like to use this exercise. It's simply that you describe the previous year as a fruit. Think about it as a fruit or a vegetable. This would help you reflect on the previous year and reflect on your experience in the universe. For me, I would say a tomato fits right there because last year was the year I exploded in terms of my potential. So I did a lot more work and I read a lot more books, and I actually earned slightly more than I had earned in previous years, except in 2022. And it was the earnings I made in 2022 that helped me launch the activities that I engaged in 2023. And it's a tomato because tomato helps me understand that I could not have accomplished all of the things that I accomplished in 2023, including publishing this YouTube channel and deciding that I was going to publish videos every few days in 2024 so I can grow my YouTube channel and also grow the kind of content that I produce. So it helps me understand that I could not have been ready until 2023. And if you think of a tomato, it's either ripe or unripe. So you're either ready or you're not ready. And for me, 2023 was that year in which I became truly ready to do the things I wanted to do, which in previous years I had only hoped and dreamed that I would someday be able to do. So perhaps we're never quite ready to do something exciting until we truly are ripe or ready for that activity. So what if you're just not ready for some of the things that you want to achieve? And what if you have to build that readiness over a period of time like I did until I eventually became ripe as a tomato for some good sauce? So let's move on to the tool and a bit of the origins about this tool. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and this goes back to the person who invented it or produced it. So this is Maslow. In the 1950s, he was a psychologist and was trying to understand how people go on to achieve self-fulfillment. And he simply created an hierarchy or a pyramid, which is a triangle to show how we go from survival to self-actualization. Initially, his work was about how people could not self-actualize until they had met their basic needs. But somewhere in the 1980s, he kept on thinking his ideas and later concluded that we do not have to move on from, that is chronologically, from meeting our basic needs to self-actualizing. It could really be from any place. So in this video, I want to explain all of these levels, not in terms of the hierarchy per se, but to explain these levels as a scope. So think about it as things that you should try to look at as a framework, really, a list of things that are on the same level, if that works for you, right? So think of it as on the same level and think of how your life or your experience resonates with some of the ideas included in Maslow's work. So this is simply a psychological health tool that is useful for helping you achieve your innate human needs, or achieve our innate human needs and prioritize all of our activities so that we can self-actualize maybe sooner than we would have otherwise. So this, I'm using simple psychology, and I'm going to include that in the slide or in the show notes, so that you could also take a look at the broader article that formed the basis for this video. So let's take a look at the hierarchy itself. So at the very bottom of that hierarchy, we have our survival needs. So our survival needs then flow up to the level of transcendence. So let's start by looking at it in terms of the really core steps in the hierarchy. Then I'll go on to explain how all of this resonates with personal growth and planning for 2024 or for whatever year you're in. So at the basic level, we're simply talking about our survival needs. That is the food that we have to eat and clothes we have to wear or where we live. And then we start thinking about psychological needs. That is our thoughts and the content of our mind. Then we go on to safety needs. So safety needs are like your security, and that's when we talk about insurance. And then we talk in terms of belonging and love needs, right? So do you want a community? Do you want to settle down, become a dad, become a mom, and all of those other things? You have self-esteem needs, and that's when we talk about how do you feel as a person? Are you confident? Do you feel respected? And do you have need to feel respected? Are you maybe interested in being a person who leads others, or a person who likes to flow with others? That's when we talk about relationships, really, in the esteem needs and how your position in that relationship is useful. So we go on to talk about cognitive needs, that is the content of our minds and how strong we are in terms of our mindset. And we have aesthetic needs, which is about beauty, but not just beauty in terms of facial appreciation or the immediate things that we appreciate, but thinking about it in terms of orderliness and a little bit about excitement, or should we say ecstasy. So we're going to talk about self-actualization. Are you fulfilled? And beyond self-fulfillment, let's also review what transcendence is about, which is the highest in Maslow's hierarchy. Transcendence is also something I'm going to talk about in other videos, so please check out my YouTube channel to see whether or not I've published them yet at the time you're listening to this. So I like to think of transcendence in terms of how you build a legend with your life, so that legend lives after your physical life on the earth, right? And that's when you can truly say that your life has transcended your time. So why do we set goals? We set goals, especially annual goals, to meet various needs. So our annual goals could meet our annual needs, but also it could help us meet the needs in other aspects of our lives, especially future needs. So one annual goal that you might have is to pay your rent. That is, if you do not have a house of your own, right? And to save enough for the next rent would help you save enough for the next bit of that aspect of your life in the future. So that's how to think of annual goals, really. It's that simple. It's nothing complex about it. It's simply saying, what are the things I want to achieve this year, and am I positioned to achieve them, or what are the resources that I need? And those, when accomplished within that year, could propel you towards the next year or to other periods of your life. So if I were to take this a notch further and ask you, what are the 3 to 5 things that you want to achieve in 2024? There's a good chance you might say you want to make more money, you want to start a business, or you want to achieve better health care for yourself. Maybe you want to start a family. Maybe you want to build new relationships. You want to build a house. All of those are very good goals. And in fact, they fall into the areas we'll be exploring right now in terms of the needs that you have for your personal growth. So if you're already thinking about those areas, then you're in the right frame of mind for achieving your personal goals in terms of the things that you need to live out the life that you intend for yourself. So what are the basics in terms of the things that you should think about for your personal goals? Because the truth is, even though critics of Maslow's work did say that poor people in developing countries, for example, achieve self fulfillment. They are happy, but no one is truly happy in terms of lacking the resources they need for a good life. In terms of a good life, we're simply talking about the basics: food, clothing, and shelter. So, this is at the fundamental. It's fundamental to our existence. I mean, I wouldn't be here right now recording this so that you could see it if I didn't have a place where I could host this setting. In fact, host my workstation, right? So, housing, for example, is very important. It plays to the psychology of our existence. So, our most basic need are psychological. We think about our place in society, which is basically surviving. We want to have air, right? We want to have food, we want to have shelter, clothing, and well, maybe at some adult level, you also want to have sex. But at any level of your life, you want to have good sleep. I recently saw a, a post about the longest at which anyone could go without sleep, and that's way lots of days. But I do not think that it is for everybody, or even for the person who achieved that feat, to go on endlessly depriving themselves of sleep. Some people think that when they deprive themselves of sleep, they are actually much more productive, but it doesn't work in the long term. Maybe at the beginning, when you start hustling, you want to deprive yourself of enough sleep so that you could have enough time to invest in the things that you want. But as you achieve your goals, you find out that you need more sleep so that you could clear your minds, right? So all of these things are at the psychological level. We need them to survive. If we did not have quality air, food, clothing, and shelter, we wouldn't be truly prepared, at least mentally and physically, for the activities that we want to engage in as we proceed through the other features of our lives. So I'd ask you, if you are thinking seriously about your personal development, what, for example, is your earth plan for 2024 or for the year you're in? And what are the plans that you have about fixing these essential needs, addressing your essential needs? So, do you have a job that caters to all of the things that you need for just your basic psychological needs? I'm talking about a job that can pay for your rent, for example. So, some people have jobs where they earn quite a good amount of money, but they're actually paying a lot more rent than they should be. And a working rule of thumb is to think of your rent, for example, as as 1/4. That is, you divide your total salary into four places, and that's equivalent to a week of your salary. So if you're paying more than a week of your salary, I think that the rule of thumb simply says that you're paying far more than you should be paying, and so you might want to reconsider that, in fact, as a serious issue. The next level is to think about our personal and social strategies. So that is in terms of the need for safety and stability and order. So, in terms of this level, we're talking about what insurance plan you might have and what welfare plan you also have. So, this is about the same thing as the previous level, which is purely psychological, but it's a little bit of a difference in terms of the fact that in this case you're more focused around the safety and securing those fundamentals. So, a couple of years ago, I was living in a new city far from anywhere I've ever lived, and it wasn't a very secure environment. But I thought I'd be okay because I wasn't rich. I was just a young person serving my doing my national service in another state, and I thought I'd be okay, right? But one night, while I was asleep, some thugs came to the premises I stayed in, and while I was asleep, they saw me laying there. They opened the window and tried to rob me of some of the stuff I had in the house. And I'm looking at the window in my house right now, and I'm like, it's literally there. I was laying down on my makeshift mattress, and they were trying to rob me. But somewhere along that, right, I woke up and I scared them away, and so they ran away. But I noticed shortly afterwards that my neighbor's room, my flatmate's room, in fact, who wasn't around, was terribly bugged. They bugged it in, and they took his TV set and many other equipments he had in the house. So I really didn't feel safe for the rest of the period I stayed in that environment, because I was always thinking about what could happen to my property, or what could even happen to me if I weren't extra careful, or if I just wasn't secure, right? So it's helpful to think about what your plan is for your safety and your security. And that's why it's important to ask yourself, do you have a basic insurance? So when I bought my latest phone, I was given an insurance plan for the phone, and it was helpful because I had also been previously robbed of my phone in the past. So this is it's not like I have so many robbery experiences and all that, but it's simply to say that if you're a young person in a place like Lagos, or just about any other place that's insecure, you might have such experiences. And so what's your plan for protecting yourself from all of those activities, and just making yourself relatively stable and maintaining orderliness in your life? What's the plan for you? So it's also about welfare, and you have to think about that as a very important strategy. So in the long term, do you want to be taken care of by the state, or do you want to have a welfare plan for yourself? That's why a pension is also a reasonable insurance strategy for the later part of our lives. And if you haven't been checking on your pension and seeing if your employer has been remitting it, I think you should do that even more seriously this year. Ask them why they aren't remitting it at the end of the month, as they should according to law, and why they're doing it quarterly or even annually. You should look at that pretty much today. Then the next step that we want to look at is the realm of relationships, right? Because it's also important for us to have relationships, healthy relationships. I think that a couple of years ago, there was so much talk about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity and all of those other toxic kinds of relationships that people are in. So think about it in terms of the relationships that you have. Do you have healthy relationships in your life? Some of us do not belong to communities that are healthy. So for a very long time in the civilized world, we didn't have such places as churches and mosques and other communities that did not only serve to our spiritual needs, but they attended to very much about all the needs that you could have in terms of relationships. So let's take a look at the educational institution, for example. If you're a working mother, or a nursing mother, or a nursing, well, not a nursing father, but a working father, you do have your wards, your children, and you take them to school. But one of the things that they do for you at school is that while you are away at work, they take care of your child. In fact, some people have after school classes for their kids, which is in a way to keep the children safe with their teachers, or in the educational institution at school, till they close at work and come over to pick them. So it's a strategy that society uses, whether consciously, intentionally, or unintentionally, to help us keep moving. So for those of us who are maybe Christians or Muslims who have a belief in God, the institutions that we go to worship are communities that help us build relationships. I've heard that, and I read this in Bible Secrets of Success. It's around that title. Don't mind me, it's not clicking right now, but it's a book by Rabbi Daniel Lapin, which talks about, one of the things he mentioned was how for the Jews who worship in synagogues or who meet in synagogues, it's very easy for you to meet a business partner in the synagogue than if you were just walking about on the street. And that's true because it's a community. So when you have such communities, it also helps you to build what is called EQ, or emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence. So you're simply just looking at how your relationships with others are affected by the things you do and by the things you say, and how sensitive you are to the needs of others within your community. That could actually help you teach the community or your place in that community to your favor, because if people like you, they're very likely to do business with you. So if you're in business, then maybe you should consider the fact that your customers should at least like you, or you should do things that your customers would like and appreciate. Now, this is a very big problem that I've experienced in Nigeria. A lot of small businesses do not care about their customers. In fact, right now, I have my money tucked in with some small banking service in the country, and it's been terrible. And they've not as much as cared about whether or not I am convenient with the delays in releasing my funds. So if you are in business, you should be concerned about whether or not people enjoy the kind of services that you offer. One of the books I read last year that sort of tilted my understanding of customer satisfaction and customer experience was Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. And it chronicles the life of Steve Jobs, but more importantly, the way he took his work. And for some people, in fact, for many people, they didn't like Steve Jobs as a boss or as a friend, because he was very oriented towards the kind of work that he did more than it was about the relationships that he kept. But one thing he always emphasized in all of those troubled relationships that Walter Isaacson notes is that he was deeply concerned about customer experience. And so if you are in business, I'm saying again, then you should think about the sort of experience that your customers have. Or if you're in a community, you should also think about whether or not people like you in that community, and whether or not you should remain in that community, or if you should move on to something else. The other level is about esteem and respect. So we've talked about psychological needs, just about the basic things we need for survival. We've talked about the things that we need for safety and insurance. We've also talked about relationships, that is your need for love. And now I want to take a moment to explain the need for esteem. So esteem simply talks about your dignity, achievement, mastery, or independence. I became relatively financially independent as from 2022, and in fact 2023 I took it a notch. I did not take work that was too demanding or that paid little for my services, and that's because I was concerned about giving the best, and I also knew that I could not give the best if I did not have enough of the mental resources to keep me going. I'm talking about that in terms of independence. So if you're thinking about being independent in 2024, then you're also thinking about your perception of yourself and how your employer and other business partners might perceive you. So the desire for reputation or respect from other people constitutes your status in your environment, right? How do you want people to perceive you? Are you respected, and do you respect other people? So this is also where you might think about self-love and whether or not you love yourself or appreciate yourself enough. Think about self-help. Think about your relationships with other people. Do you think that people in your life, especially in your immediate life, do not respect you enough? And is respect something that you prioritize? If that is a thing that you prioritize, then in your goals for 2024, or just about any other time, you should evaluate what your activities would be and think about how you carry yourself in all of those relationships and in the fulfillment of those activities, because it's going to play out in how people perceive you, and people's perception of you will eventually determine whether or not you're respected. Some of us want to go on to become high achievers, and we want to relate with other high achievers. Well, if that's a thing for you, then you should step out of your comfort area and try to achieve a lot more, so that you can shift the winds of change in terms of your relationship towards high achievement. And then there are cognitive needs, which is at the fifth level. The first four needs that we examined was about your needs for addressing the areas of deficiency in your life. Right now, from this point of cognitive needs, we want to look at the needs to become more creative. So we're not exploring what makes you unable to achieve your goals now. At this level, we're exploring what would make you achieve, in fact, more of the goals that you desire. In terms of cognitive needs, we're simply referring to your knowledge, understanding, and ability to predict things or explore things. Do you have a deep need for meaning? If you are a traveler, for example, then there's a very good chance that you are trying to explore the world and find your place in it, or maybe just feel a greater sense of purpose to your life. There are people who travel regularly and, in fact, who enjoy traveling or going mountain climbing and many others. Those activities aren't a waste of funds like some people in Nigeria would like to think. Or we do not prioritize such explorative activities because we think, oh, well, you don't have enough of money, so why are you wasting it, they would say, on activities that do not bring financial yield? Well, they do not necessarily have to bring financial yield, because that is not the goal of such activities. The goal of such activities is to improve your cognitive abilities, that is, your understanding of yourself and your place in the universe. So some people enjoy solving tough mathematical problems, and it's not a waste of time for them. It's not merely an exercise, it's a deliberate attempt to improve the accuracy and predict, because I think that's a bit of what mathematics is about, to increase their ability to predict events and to predict outcomes that they want. And such people might be quite, well, this is not a statement of fact, it's just what I think. Such people might be quite really concerned about the ability to control activities and to control outcomes. One book that I read last year that truly helped me think about meaning and my place in the world despite the activities that I could face is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. In this book, Viktor Frankl chronicles or just writes about his life in Auschwitz. And he talks about when the Nazi, and this is a very tough story, for anyone who knows about the Holocaust or the massacre of Jews in Germany. It's a very moving experience, because people were, killed and other things. And Viktor Frankl was a prisoner for a very long time, and he was tortured. And in that place, a lot of people died, but few people like Viktor Frankl survived. And Viktor Frankl was simply saying that one of the things that he noticed in that camp, in the prisoners' camp, was that for him and other survivors, they tended to cling on to a sense of meaning and purpose that was beyond their immediate experience. And I think that that's going to be useful for you in terms of the things you want to go on to achieve. Because the truth is, in life, a lot of things would not be in your favor. If you're working, for example, your boss or the owner of your company, the management of your company, would determine the places where you would go to if you're working on projects, for example, or just about the time that you have to resume work in the office. A lot of things are determined and expected of you. So how do you think about your place and move through all of those uncontrollable events, and how do they influence your life? Some people do not function pretty much when they have to deal with uncertainty. But the world is increasingly uncertain now. We'll talk about the VUCA environment. So you should think about how to build your cognitive abilities to a certain level where, irrespective of the events that come to you, you understand that your place in the world has a purpose. And if you stick to that purpose, then there's a good chance the activities that come your way or the events that come your way, whatever those changes are, would only need a bit of maneuvering than you would really have to shut down. If you did not have that strong sense of cognition and purpose, you may have to shut down otherwise and say, oh, but I can't control this, so what's the purpose or what's the use for that? So for people, many people have found that for their cognitive needs, they have faith, or that faith and spiritual activities is very helpful for them to think about their cognitive needs. And this is where meditation could also be very helpful. In another video, I'm going to talk about the MERDS understanding, that is MERDSS, and I'm not going to say what the meaning is now. But in the personal growth and personal development space, it's one of the things that we use to help people think about meditation and many other vital things that are helpful for the mind. So check out my YouTube channel at some other time, that is if I haven't done that video yet, so you could see that video and see how meditation, health, exercises, good diet and other things would help you improve your cognitive abilities. So let's also talk about aesthetic needs. Now, many people laugh at women for having long fingernails and many other beauty or aesthetic things. But the truth is, when you see people with such things, it's the same, well, maybe really the same mental capacity as people who are artists and people who just love to sit in nature. For them, it's about elegance and order, right? And while for some people, it might appear that for people who are beauty oriented in, say, the beauty or pageantry business, it might appear that they are more interested in superficial or facial things, but in truth, they are more concerned about how they can control elegance or create a beautiful atmosphere and maintain orderliness in that atmosphere, or just create. And for makeup artists, I think that they have this concept pretty well than other people. So a makeup artist takes a look at someone and says, oh no, we could use a little bit of beauty, assorted beauty tools and therapy to help you look in a certain way that could really transform your face in a moment. And so in thinking like that, they're simply saying that we could take this not so orderly face or atmosphere and create something more orderly and beautiful. So it's about the same thing. So if you find yourself spending a lot more on your appearance or on your beauty, then it's not a problem, because people might like to make you think that, oh, you spend a lot of money on your clothes, but you do not spend so much on these other activities. Well, if those other activities are your health, then maybe you should spend as much on your healthcare as well. But it's not fundamentally wrong if you are thinking about your healthcare and you're spending so much about on your facial appearance as well, or your total body appearance, or just your appearance in public, right? So it's about whether or not you perceive yourself to be someone who should appear so elegant and orderly. So it's important because it's about the same mind frame as musicians and people who create great beats out of nothing, like nothing being no sound at all, right? So, and I have those images here. If you're watching or if you are listening to the podcast, then you should think about it and not be overly critical of yourself, but just ask yourself, why am I so interested in spending so much money on the way I appear? Is it that I do not think that other areas of my life are important? No, there's a good chance that you think that other areas of your life are important, but you just might think that appearing well, appearing beautiful, and holding a certain image of yourself is the signature that you need to contemplate other areas of your life, and that's entirely fine. Then we want to talk about at this stage self fulfillment. So, the desire to accomplish everything that you possibly can and to become everything that you are capable of becoming is what self fulfillment is. So, think about your goals, and this is the totality of all your goals for the year that you're in or for the period that you're in. It's understanding that for all of those activities that you want to achieve, one of the things that they are going to contribute to is what we call self fulfillment, which is, have I achieved everything that I want to achieve? So we talk about IP, intellectual property, and many other things. Intellectual property is really just a way of securing something that you have achieved. Making a patent or registering a patent for a device that you have invented is also another way of securing something that you have achieved, because it's one thing to achieve something and it's another to secure the thing you have achieved. So it's not a waste of time or energy to be invested in keeping or protecting the image that you have built over the years, because you want to build something and you do not want a system, a government, or just about any other person coming over to smash all of those beautiful things that you've invested so much time and energy trying to achieve. And that's where such laws as IP, copyright, and patent laws come in, because they protect the sense of fulfillment and achievement that we have gathered for ourselves. So people also celebrate themselves through awards. So think about the awards you want to achieve this year, right? And that's a very useful way of thinking about personal fulfillment. Do you have recognition for some of the things that you have done in the community where you serve, in the environment where you are? Some people have a name, and some people would say that a good name is worth more than millions. And that's because a good name is a thing that you achieve over a long period of time. It's in itself a bit of fulfillment or a bit of self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you say that I am respected in this environment, then I go to that environment and I demand something, you could almost visualize yourself and have that visualization come true immediately. You know why? Because that reputation is one that you could use to get many other things. So if you also think about yourself as being capable or having potential for certain things, then you are most likely going to move the rest of the universe or the rest of your activities towards the realization of that thing. And for people who think negatively most of the time, the reason they keep getting negative things is because they're most likely attracting those things. Why am I saying this under self-fulfillment? Because it's just true for all of our activities. If you want to achieve certain results, then you have to position yourself towards those things or try to attract those things into your life. You want to be celebrated, then you should do the activities that would help you earn the awards or feature in the ceremony. You want to invent something, then maybe you should start tinkering more or doing a lot more activities oriented towards the thing that you want to introduce into the world. So we've talked about self-fulfillment now. Previously, we talked about fulfilling our aesthetic needs and meeting our cognitive needs. Now we are onto the last level in the hierarchy, which is the level of transcendence, and this supersedes every other level in the scope or on the hierarchy, because for transcendence, it's about the life beyond our current life. So it's a step out of the entire frame. And here's how I like to look at it. Whereas all the levels in the scope or in the hierarchy are about your present or physical life, transcendence is more about the life that is after this life or the life hereafter. So Mother Teresa, for example, is no longer alive physically, but we know that, and we keep saying Mother Teresa every now and then. She is almost synonymous to, or she's quite synonymous to uh, giving and philanthropy. So, in terms of transcendence, we're talking about how people go on to build a legacy through their present life, and in the afterlife, that legacy remains because people have seen that the life that you led is one that was dedicated towards a certain thing. So when we talk about smartness or intelligence, in fact, when we are doing design, I've noticed this in the design community. For example, people tend to use the face or the image of Albert Einstein when they are talking about intelligence or brilliance, and that's because Albert Einstein, well, maybe true or not, and this is quite arguable, was someone who achieved so much in terms of his work and his contribution to science and to the development of education. So people tend to do those associations because of how we dedicate our lives to certain activities. And after our physical life, then we we now have a movement that is geared towards sustaining the activities that we involved in our present life. So you talk about religious leaders, for example, Mahatma Gandhi and many others. I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus Christ, right? And Jesus lived a life up to 33 years of age. And by the time he died, was buried, resurrected, and then ascended into the heavens, the Christians, the earliest Christians, then created a movement to sustain the activities that he was involved in, and now his name is synonymous to holiness. So, why is this important? It's to help you think about your life right now and the totality of your life right now. What are the events or what are the activities that you're dedicated in that could form a movement for your life in the hereafter? That's what transcendence is. So a person is motivated by values that transcend, that is, live beyond your personal self. Your personal self being yourself right now, and it is truly beyond, self-actualization, because it now represents the human desire, your desire, my desire, to connect to the purpose or to a broader level in the universe that is not determined or fixed on our physical existence. So, talk about Steve Jobs. Apple is still going strong way after his passing. That's a bit of transcendence, or that's transcendence in a good example right there. What are the products, what are the activities that would be used to remember you? So it's not just about achieving a lot of things for yourself in 2024 or in any other year. It's about leaving a legacy that would help preserve or even kickstart a movement after your life has ended. And I think that's the alpha level of personal growth and personal development. So people in when Maslow created his work, he noticed that for people who were self-actualized, that there were a number of features associated with them. And so I'm just going to highlight 6 of them here. So if you're thinking about self-actualization, maybe you want to think about having some of these characteristics in your work or in your life. So the first one is you perceive reality efficiently and you can tolerate uncertainty. We were talking about uncertainty a moment ago, and I said that you want to move beyond being affected by the changes in your life to how you can respond to those changes and what cognitive abilities that you have to help you maneuver the VUCA environments that we exist in right now. So you also want to think about your ability to to be spontaneous in thought and action. So spontaneity simply means that you can make rapid movements, rapid thoughtful movements that address certain needs or address certain causes of action. That you're problem centered. So you look at the problem and you think about what solutions to that problem would be feasible and what you can do about it, and that you are resistant to the status quo. Like, some people join communities and immediately they join the community, they flow with that community and they forget about themselves, whereas some people join the community and when they get there, they want to create a revolution to change things in that community, or if they don't create or succeed in creating a revolution, they at least change a couple of things to move that community in a different direction. Well, you have to have an unusual sense of humor, because people take things too seriously, do not quite navigate the world in a very happy way. They see a lot of bad things in the world and they try to make, well, maybe they don't do that deliberately, but they almost always try to make things worse. You have to have a sense of humor, because as much as the problems are that exist in the world, there are also things that you can truly be happy about and be grateful about. People who are happy tend to produce a lot more and to solve a lot more problems than people who were not happy, I would say, in my estimation. But I think that there's a lot of scientific research to back up that judgment. So you're also concerned about the welfare of humanity. Talk about the people who have gone on to achieve transcendence, from the likes of Jesus, who was working miracles in nearly all the places that he went to the likes of Steve Jobs, who created basic tools to help people in the current world, in terms of the modern world, navigate and experience beauty and technology. That's transcendence right there. They were all concerned about the welfare of humanity. And if you are right there, you're concerned about the welfare of humanity, then you are well on the way to achieving your personal growth needs for 2024 or for 2025 or just about any other year. Thanks for watching and for sticking with me through this podcast episode. And thank you for your likes, shares, and other things that would give me feedback. As I said, if this is your first episode, thanks for watching. I'm an educator and growth coach, and I've only just started my YouTube channel, so it's not very smooth right now, but it gets better as we get going. And right now, I'm simply just on my way. I'm just going, right? So I'm not about making it perfect yet. But by the time I'm at like my 50th or 100th video, you're going to see that a lot of things would have changed. Maybe it's the way that I am talking right now that's quite repetitive, and I spend a lot more time explaining. I understand, but it's going to get better. Thanks for watching. Please take a look at the channel or take a look at the podcast to see other episodes, interesting things that I have to share with you to help you reduce the growth curve in your personal growth and personal development experience. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.